Hello everybody, today we're gonna go over each Deltarune character and figure out where they land on the political compass. If you don't know what the compass is, it's basically a graph with two axes. The horizontal axis is the economic freedom. So on the left you've got the 100% communist, and on the far right you've got the all taxes bad, all billionaires goods type capitalists. The vertical axis is personal freedom. So for example, let's take something simple like dress codes. If you think that the society should be forced by law to dress a certain way, then you'd be higher on the axis because that's limiting personal freedom. And if you're against that, then you'd be lower on the axis because that's allowing personal freedom. This also applies to more complex topics which are usually thought of as right versus left. For example, abortion, the LGBTQ topics, and gun ownership. Here, it's not really right versus left, and it's more top versus bottom. And now you're probably asking yourself, wait, how is he gonna place Deltarune characters on this compass? Let's just say I will change the rules a bit. So, the vertical axis stays the same, but this axis will now be called the self versus the collective axis. Characters move farther to the right if they act purely for themselves, think real-world billionaires, and farther to the left if they act for the benefit of everyone, or they think they are acting for the benefit of everyone. Oh, also, I don't think I have to say that this video is not meant to be taken seriously and will probably contain slander of all political viewpoints, so just keep it in mind, alright? With that out of the way, let's begin. Let's start with Chris. They want freedom, so they should be in the lower parts of the compass, and we don't know their motives, so we can't exactly pinpoint their location on the compass. But they care for Susie, they don't want her to die, and they probably care for Noelle, Ralsei, but we see that they care for Susie, so they care for somebody, which means that they should probably be put, yeah, like here. Susie, she disobeys the rules, she makes up her own rules, and she's even willing to go against the prophecy, which means that she's definitely at the bottom of the compass, but also she really cares for her team. So like Susie is like here, I would say, maybe even a bit farther to the left. And now Ralsei. Ralsei wants to obey the prophecy. It's also totally under Chris's, or the player's, control, and he does everything that the player wants them to do. But also he wants the best for the Fun Gang. So he will be first to be in this quadrant of the compass. He's fully altruistic. Here, he's not at the absolute top, because I think that if you continue with the Snowgrave route, he will probably rebel against you, but I'm not 100% sure. Lancer. Lancer is royalty, so he should probably be like here. I mean, royalty is almost always this quadrant, but it could technically be this quadrant. But Lancer, he rebels against his father. Revolution isn't anything that happens when you're like really authoritarian. He also seems to get along well with Susie and is willing to sacrifice himself for his friends, which is why he is, I mean, like, he's still royalty. I think he was made the king after chapter 1, so he's like here. Now we have Rulsus card. Rules card is under the king. He works for the king, so he submits to authority, but thinks that the king is stupid. He also kind of seems like an egoist, so he's like right here. Jevil, I mean, it's not gonna be a surprise. Jevil is right here because he wants freedom, and he's kind of egoistic, I guess. And now the king. He's a monarch, and he honestly just cares about himself, so he's right here. And this is it for the important characters of chapter 1. Let's get into chapter 2. Noelle. Noelle is 100% willing to submit to authority, which means she should be at the top of the compass, and I would say at the top because Chris could tell her to do literally anything and she would do it. She's at the top, but she also cares about the people she loves, which means that I don't think she's as altruistic as Rosie, so like right here, I think. Birdley is an egomaniac, but he's also willing to submit to authority. So Birdley sits like here. The Queen is a monarch, which means she has to be in the one of the top 2 quadrants of the compass, but she wants the best for everyone in her dark world, and she's willing to go to far lengths to achieve that. And that places her here. Spamton sits here for 3 reasons, I don't know. But first of all, he only cares for himself. Second of all, if this axis was the economical axis, he would also sit here, and he also really wants to be free, which sadly doesn't really happen, but he sits here. Since we're done with discussing chapter 2's Dark World, let's talk about Toriel. Toriel is definitely altruistic, but I think that she places like in the middle of the authority/freedom axis with a slight leaning towards authority because she's a mother, which makes her a figure of authority. She's here. She is here. And since Anzine has a bit of importance in chapter 3, let's discuss her. She's probably gay, which means that she can't be in this quadrant. This part of the compass is known for homophobia. She's also a police officer, which means that she does things for the best of the citizens, which puts her here. She's willing to submit to authority. She has authority, but she's also willing to sacrifice herself for the good of others. Alright, let's get started with chapter 3. Mr. Antenna. He's definitely altruistic. Is he? Is he altruistic? I mean, he wants to feel his family near him again, which means that he's kinda egotistical a bit, but he also does what Chris told him to do, which means that he's willing to submit to authority. I feel like his motivations in chapter 3 place him near the middle of the horizontal axis and like here on the vertical axis, because he's willing to submit to authority, to Chris, and that's it. Alright, now let's talk about Des. Alright, now let's talk about Carol. Alright, now let's talk about Ruth. Alright, now let's talk about the Roaring Knight. We practically can't talk about them because we don't know anything about them. We just know that they want to cause the roaring, and that places them near the bottom. Now hear me out. They want to lead to anarchy because roaring will kill everybody and the world will be in anarchy for a bit. And we don't know their motives at all. This is the Roaring Knight area. They can be like here or they can be like here. They are just really free. Oh! La Nina and El Nino. Polyamorous relationship. They can't be here. They are like the first centrist people on the list. I just put them like here. The original Star Walker. I completely forgot about the GOAT. He is here. He's the strongest person in the verse. He could solo Giorno, Goku, Gimper, everybody. You have to submit to Star Walker. Even you have to submit to Star Walker by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Funny. That's it for the important chapter 3 characters. Now let's go into chapter 4. Carol. She's homophobic. Gerson is willing to do a lot for our team, but he rejected the freedom of the Shadow Crystal, which means that he's a little bit authoritarian. He also believes in the prophecy and goes to church. And going to church means submitting to an authority, which places him, I wouldn't say he's high on this axis. He's like here. Jackenstein. I feel like Jackenstein's position on the compass is hard to determine. I feel like he's a little altruistic, but he's lower on the vertical axis because we have literally no characters in this quadrant. Everybody's altruistic and authoritarian. The Titan. He wants to wreak havoc. And he doesn't care about anything except for wreaking havoc. Which means ego and freedom. Is it freedom? Does he really want freedom? He wants to spread the authority of the darkness. I mean, he only cares about spreading the dark. Does he really want freedom? Does he want freedom? No, I wouldn't say so. He's definitely in the ego part because he only cares about spread. Is it ego? Is spreading the darkness ego? He's made out of darkness, but is it ego? I want to put him close to freedom and also close to authoritarianism, which means that he has to be kinda in the middle. That's why the political compass doesn't always work. That's it for the Dark World, and let's talk about the hometown characters now. Asgore. We'll get to know more about him in chapter 5, but he was a king. He was a king in Undertale. Asgore, king. And he is also divorced and depressed. Also, he is here because he doesn't care about his children. Sans Deltarune. I mean, I really don't like Sans Deltarune. He seems like an egomaniac because, I mean, you go in the house and he's just dancing with Toriel. He got her drunk. I don't like Sans Deltarune. I think he doesn't care about authority. Alphys. She's giving me kind of altruistic vibes and she's willing to submit to anti-authority. By the way, did you notice that the less important characters are closer to the center while the more important characters are farther away from it? That seems interesting. The priest. The priest is a priest. He's willing to submit to authority. He has some authority. I think he's more of an altruist than an egoist, so... Alright, and that's it for the important characters. Now I'll be putting some less important Deltarune characters on this compass. K-Round. He has a crown and he fights for the king or Lancer. So, Sean. I mean, I would call myself a Sean lover. He fought Devil and got him in prison, which means that he has to be kind of altruistic. And since he supports prisons, that means that he's kind of a bit more authoritarian than liberal. Gumball Watterson. He definitely loves freedom. And he also loves his brother, though he can get a bit egoistic. But I think that he should be placed in the middle of the horizontal axis. Task Manager. She's under Queen and she manages tasks. So she submits to authority and she's herself an authority. And I feel like she's in the middle of this axis. So Mike Afton. So he basically killed his brother but then felt remorse. So he wanted to destroy all the animatronics. So he changed his political views. He became an altruist and he obeyed the authority of Henry Williams. So, like. And our final character, Sans Undertale. Just kidding, we won't be putting him on this political compass. I would do a separate video for Undertale characters. So, subscribe so you can see the video when it comes out, okay?